everyone, today we're going to talk about how to do your standards assignment. So on your syllabus you might have seen the standards paper outline and the standards paper final, and both of these assignments have been combined to a new assignment which is called the standards assignment, just one assignment. So here's the way to complete this assignment. We're going to start at the home page of the Canvas site and go into modules. And under modules I'm going to scroll down to the week 10 module, and in the week 10 module I see here we have the standards assignment. So I'm just going to open that assignment and take a minute to look over the purpose of the assignment. So basically the purpose of the assignment is to take some time to explore Common Core. You might have heard about Common Core on the news or in an article that you read or through word of mouth, and you might have heard some positive things or some negative things about Common Core. You might have heard other people's opinions. And to clear up any confusion, Common Core is a set of academic standards that were set by the national government, so by the federal government. And they were developed through both politicians and bureaucrats, as well as education researchers, child development experts, and principals and teachers from schools. So all these people got together and said, okay, let's develop some academic standards that we think kids should be able to achieve depending on what grade level they're in. And so you might have heard that Common Core is a set of standardized tests. It is not a set of standardized tests. There are standardized tests that have been developed as a result of Common Core to measure whether or not kids are hitting these benchmarks, but Common Core itself is simply a set of standards that we think that children should be able to achieve at a given grade level. So the purpose of this assignment is to look at Common Core and make a critical evaluation of its developmental appropriateness. And so the way we're going to do this is taking a look at the Washington State Early Learning and Development Guidelines, which we looked at in our observation assignment, that really give us an idea about what is expected or what kids should be able to do developmentally at a given age. And then we're also going to take a look at your textbook, your Rodhu's textbook, and see what sort of information we can find there to justify or evaluate the developmental appropriateness of Common Core. So I'm just going to start by opening this criteria sheet, which is here. And here we can see what the assignment criteria is for this assignment. So again, this is sort of the thing that I've described to you. I would advise you to take some time to read through this prompt. And then I'm going to skip down to the different steps that are involved in this assignment, if I can. So there are a few different steps. Let's just go through them together. So step one is you're going to choose an area of focus in both math and English language arts, because the Common Core standards look at both math and English language arts. So you're going to look at both. And so here's the example that I took. And this example is going to make a lot more sense when you see the assignment grid that you're going to put it in. So I'm going to go lightly on this example for now, and then skip to point number 2. So step 2 is to look at all the elements within that area of focus. So say that I found under English language arts reading standards for literature, key ideas and details in grade 1. So under key ideas and details for grade 1 in the reading standards, I found 3 things: ask and answer questions, retell stories, and describe characters and settings, blah, blah, blah. Great. Now I'm going to look in the Washington State Early Learning and Development Guidelines and see if there's something in grade 1 that matches with that or says something about what children should be able to do in terms of literacy. And so here I've looked and I've found that children should be able to do speaking, listening, and reading. And so then I'm going to find alignment or areas that don't align between the Common Core state standards and the Washington State Early Learning and Development Guidelines. And so there I'm just going to find an area of alignment or where they don't align and state that. After that, there are 2 more steps. I'm going to use information from the class sessions and readings, in particular the textbook, and find something that relates to this reading standard that I've been looking at. And what I found was that children's working memory might help them with reading and spoken language. And I found that in the textbook. And so I found that in the cognitive section of the textbook because I thought cognitive matches well with reading ability. Finally, number 6 is the part where you really have to put your thinking cap on. So here you're going to analyze the standard for developmental appropriateness. So you've reviewed these 3 sources, and I want you to think critically and say, okay, is this developmentally appropriate and why? Or is it not and why? And you're really going to explain that answer. And underneath this, you'll see the grading criteria. So this assignment is worth 50 points, and you can see how the point breakdown works. So I would advise you to, before you turn in your assignment, take a look at this grading criteria and make sure that you've hit each and every one of these, and take a look at how many points they're all worth. And then, of course, we can see which course outcome this assignment is meeting. Okay, so let's go back to our Canvas page, and let's go back to the Week 10 module. And I've also got the standards assignment form, and this is the form that you're going to use when you do the assignment yourself. And this is an example. Here's one that I've filled out. So I'm going to open that for you now. Okay, so here's the standards assignment example. So you can see I've written my name at the top. That's not really my name. That's a fake name. And the class and the date and such and such. And so this grid has all the 6 steps filled out in a grid. So you're going to use a template that's exactly like this, and this part will not be filled in. It'll be blank. And so let's start with the Common Core State Standard, the first one. So I'm going to look up English Language Arts because that's the first thing I'm going to do. So here is the stuff that I found from English Language Arts. Now how did I find that? Let me show you. So in Module 10, I also have the Common Core State Standards and the Washington State Early Learning and Development Guidelines. So I'm going to go ahead and open both of those so we can have a look at those. Here is the page for the Common Core State Standards. And as you can see, it has English Language Arts and Mathematics Standards. So we're going to fill out that grid for both of those things. So let's start with English Language Arts. And remember, the part that I wanted to look at was grade 1. You don't need to do grade 1. You can do anything you want in here. You can pick any of these standards and look at them. So you could pick reading literature, you could pick reading informational text, you could pick writing, you could pick speaking and listening. Remember, the one that I picked was literature. And the one I was interested in is grade 1. Okay, so I picked literature grade 1, and then underneath that, you'll see that for English Language Arts, reading literature grade 1, there are all these different substandards. There's key ideas and details, there's craft and structure, there's integration of knowledge and ideas, there's range of reading, and level of text complexity. So I'm just going to go with the first one. You don't need to, but I'm gonna. So this is the one I'm going to use for my example, key ideas and details. So there are 3 things under key ideas and details. Ask and answer questions about key details in a text, retell stories including key details and demonstrate an understanding of their central message or lesson, and describe characters and settings and major events in a story using key details. So all I did in my form was plug in that specific information. So remember, when you get this form, this is going to be blank, and I filled that stuff in. So I put in ask and answer questions, retell stories, describe characters, blah, 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 because that was what I found in the Common Core State Standard, verbatim. So I put that in word for word. Okay, so now I move down to the Washington State Early Learning and Development Guidelines, and I'm going to find something to put in this box. So imagine this box is blank. And what I found was when I went into Washington State Early Learning and Development Guidelines, the way I like to navigate this is to open up the chapters. And you can kind of open up the chapters like this. You can push this little bookmark button and it tells you little chapters. And so remember, I was looking at first grade when I was in Common Core, so let's look at first grade here too. And so under first grade, here we've got first grade, we've got this happy looking little girl. And under first grade, there are a bunch of categories. What families already know about their children, some questions. Okay, here are the categories. About me and my family and culture. That sounds like social development, so I'm going to skip it because I'm looking for reading. Building relationships, that also sounds like social development, so I'm still looking for reading. Touching, seeing, moving around looks like physical development. Growing up healthy also sounds like physical development. Ah, what about this? Communicating and literacy. That seems like it could be right up my alley. So let's zoom in on that a little. So now I need to think about what in this section relates to what the Common Core standards were saying that children should be able to do in first grade. So let's see if there's anything similar. Well, what about this? Follow directions, retell stories, and explain visual information. That sounds really good. That sounds exactly like what they were saying here. Retell stories, including key details. So I've put that right in here. I follow directions, retell stories, and explain visual information. Let's see, let's just look at another example. So I also see that they want children to be able to describe character, or that they believe that children are able to describe characters and settings and major events in a story. And they can also identify and explain story elements like character, setting, and events. So these are 3 things that I think match very well. So I'm going to plug those in this little box here. And so remember, what's happening here is that in the Washington State Early Learning and Development Guidelines, we're stating what is developmentally appropriate for a child in first grade. And so now I can answer that question. Do they align? Yes, I say in a complete sentence. Yes, the Common Core state standards align with the Washington State Early Learning and Development Guidelines for this specific instance. Now, I need to look in my textbook to see if I can find another piece of evidence that highlights developmental appropriateness. And so what I found is I turned to the cognitive section of my textbook and found that children's working memory is developing during this time. And this helps them to comprehend language. Hey, Rothaus says this, so it sounds good. And so then I put that information in here in the theoretical and practical rationale from the Rothaus textbook. And then finally, the last thing I'm going to do is analyze that standard for developmentally appropriateness for the given age or grade level. And so here's when you really have to do your critical thinking. So here I've critically evaluated all the information that I put together and said the reasons why I think it's developmentally appropriate. I really explained it in detail. And that's what I've done in this box. So after I've done that, I'm going to go through and do the exact same thing for mathematics. And just to kind of get you started on that, say I'm in here, I want to go back and back to mathematics. And you're just going to do the same thing for mathematics. Say I'm going to pick, grade 1, and I'll pick operations and algebraic thinking in grade 1. What do they want kids to do? And then I'll go through and look at the same thing in Washington State Early Learning and Development Guidelines. Probably somewhere in cognition, because look, here's math. Okay, so that is how you're going to do your standards assignment. So the blank document is found here, and it's going to look just like this example document, but it's going to be blank. And I think this is going to be a very fun assignment for you to be able to take some time and really evaluate and think about if these standards are developmentally appropriate at the different age levels. I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with.